Good evening, everyone. The Ranter is back to do his Ranter's News of the Week. I'm going to try to structure this video, as I attempted to a few other times, instead of letting it be just a free-floating stream of consciousness of everything I want to talk about. I'm going to try to limit myself to a couple of topics, but the thing is, there is so much material that I want to get into that in order to keep this down on a reasonable time frame so y'all can watch this without drifting away, I'm going to actually attempt to do multiple videos and just post them one at a time per day. So if you happen to see me in the same shirt, it's just me on the same day doing the videos. It's just not my practice of laundry. Or is it? Anyway. So, to start off things, as y'all know, I passed my birthday last week, and I was on vacation from work, so I was pretty happy. I did a video or two then too, but such things needed to be done. However, last week I was pretty happy. I was relaxed. At the end of the week, I went to Richmond and saw my favorite comedian, Steve Hofstetter, down at a comedy show down there. And so that was pretty good. I came back. I was nice and relaxed. It was all even keel. I would melodramatically describe it as the scene in the third Matrix movie where they're trying to get above the attack, and they get above the clouds, and it's a beautiful sky up there. There's the sun, and it's blue skies, and it's everything. It's beautiful. And then it dives back down into the clouds and back into reality. So, yeah, a few days removed from Friday and Saturday, and now we're back on to Wednesday, and so I'm back down into reality. So for the couple of topics that I'm going to discuss here is that we're going to talk about the stuff that happened yesterday with Trump in his tweet describing to his fellow Republicans that they're watching him go through a lynching. Yes, Trump, who has to sit and watch as he's being investigated in an impeachment inquiry on whether or not he's been doing wrongdoings and gathering evidence of abuse of power, is exactly the same thing as if he was being lynched, as he was being dragged out of his house by racist scumbags wearing pillowcases over their heads and strung up to a tree, or whatever form of lynching you prefer, which ends in death. Yeah, that's the same thing as an impeachment inquiry. Okay? Now, we'll go over this just a bit. First, from after he said that, the White House tried to clean up what he said, trying to clarify. No, he wasn't comparing and contrasting the impeachment inquiry with the lynching. That wasn't what he was doing. Yeah, that's what he was doing. And then you have the people like me who was outraged for him using those words and trying to, fathom why isn't anyone else particularly outraged by this. And then there are the Trump defenders and apologists who decided to go on TV and show video clips of Joe Biden in '98 saying the same thing about Bill Clinton getting impeached or going through the impeachment process, or various other people, including, black representatives who said the words lynch. And in my mind, I'm going, what? They did a wrong thing, so therefore it's okay for Trump to do a wrong thing. Because if you think that I'm going to be here and defend Joe Biden saying the same thing about, Clinton's being lynched, folks. No, I'm not defending that. He shouldn't have said that in '98. No one should be saying that on my side of the aisle or your side of the aisle about anyone getting lynched unless they're actually getting lynched. This is an impeachment inquiry. This is people sitting in meetings, talking about testimony and gathering evidence. That is not someone being put to death. This may sound, melodramatic for me having to say this and explain it. But, as I say, the defenders are bringing up all these other instances where it's being said, and it says, "Oh, why didn't you go after them? Why did you go after them?" Well, when Joe Biden said that in '98, I was 20, and I wasn't really paying attention to politics. I was paying attention to, I don't know. Back then, I was in college. Back then, I was getting back into pro wrestling because I'm a geeky fan of various things: pro wrestling, D&D, etc., etc., sci-fi, and going through the various relationships I was going through. Yes, exactly. So, forgive me, I wasn't really in on all the politics of the day at that point. I was getting politically aware. I didn't know Bill Clinton was going through an impeachment, but, somebody's going from, getting really involved in politics when you turn 18, for me, which was 96, and then going forward, you're not, it's not the same thing as having the nuance of going through and understanding politics when you're 41, which I am now. And also, to another caveat to the point, back in '98, we didn't have the same 24-hour news cycle, totalitarian news cycles we did now. We had Fox News back then, which was gaining its prominence and its rise because of the Bill Clinton Monica Lewinsky thing. It was like every other show was about that, so their ratings was growing from that point. We had CNN, when CNN headline news. I remember watching headline news simply because of the Gulf War, in the very early '90s, because all of us who were watching, we would be watching the war coverage, and you understand the differences in time when the sun is starting to rise over Kuwait or Iraq. That means that you're about 2 hours away yourself from needing to get up to go to school. So, yeah, there's a little bit of interesting nuance when it comes to that. But, various different hours, pardon. But, in '98, you didn't have, like the full-on internet that we have now. So, you didn't have, didn't have Facebook, didn't have Twitter, didn't have any major social media, really. You had, web pages and bulletin boards and so forth, but you didn't have what we have now. Now, a stray outlandish utterances of some council seat in some town in Tennessee can get international headlines because everyone can pick it and then puts it online, and other news organizations carry it out, and then boom, you got global exposure on something that someone would be saying 10, 20 years ago and no one would have noticed he said it. But not this day and age, which is another side venture into a lot of these people, especially Republicans, who say things and they don't think that that's going to get out. They'll say something, weirdly outlandish or something that it would be scandalous. But since they were among friends, that no one would tell other people about it. However, in this internet age and social media age, all it takes is one video from a phone, and then you got Mitt Romney talking about the 47%. But be that as it may. So, we have all that going on from Joe Biden, '98, and all these other people that have been brought up who said the word lynching, right? And you expect us to be ashamed or shocked or try to defend them for saying it? No, they were wrong for saying it. So therefore, if they are wrong for saying it and you are bringing it up as a compare and contrast to when Trump is saying that perhaps it isn't so bad for Trump to say it, no, it's still bad. And why it could be worse that Trump said it is, A, he's a president of the goddamn United States. And I know you're trying to defend the concept of this guy. It's okay for this guy to not be presidential in any way, shape, or form. But it's not okay that he's not presidential in any way, shape, or form. It's not. You don't seem to grasp the point that when you're president of the United States, everything you say, everything you do, every inflection, every opinion on policy or any opinion on another country gets global attention. Everyone is watching. Everyone is analyzing what you say, what the implications were. Stocks, weirdly enough, because apparently the stock market is full of emotional people who, if you say a phrase at a presidential level, people will get, and then stocks go down. You say something positive at a presidential level, then stocks go back up. So him saying this on Twitter, which is essentially the presidential decree, or it's not, because evidently you defend whatever he says on Twitter, saying either that's not official presidential stance, or it is the official presidential stance, because you go both ways for some reason. You defend him not being presidential like that as if that's a good thing. And it's not a good thing, because the world is watching. But even his golfing buddy Lindsey Graham, who has been kind of on the fence of how he's dealing with Trump in terms of the whole Syrian thing, which now he's trying to pretend he's getting back on board, or like he never left the board, but he kind of left the board, and now he's back puttering for his buddy by stating that this is a lynching in every way, shape, or form. Lindsey Graham actually said that. Y'all who are just claiming that this is a metaphor. Lindsey Graham said that an impeachment inquiry is every way, shape, or form like someone being pulled out of their house by racist scumbags in pillowcases and put to death. That is an impeachment inquiry? That's the same goddamn thing? But with all that outrage that we feel, all that for y'all who defend him on this word, this once again proves my theory that when Trump says something outrageous, outlandish, committing to his racist assholery up here that we're paying attention to, down here he's trying to keep you distracted from the testimony that U.S. Envoy Bill Taylor did. Because on the same day that he said lynching in his tweet, the same day Bill Taylor was testifying, who indeed corroborated that there was indeed a quid pro quo. That indeed there was condition for Zelensky to get a phone call from the president if he didn't play ball on investigating Biden. That there wasn't going to get aid for Ukraine if they didn't publicly announce that they're going to investigate the Bidens. Yeah. Now we see articles come out that Ukraine knew that the aid was going to be withheld back in August on this, if they didn't play ball and officially come out front on camera, on microphone, and say that they're going to investigate the Bidens. And there's already defensive arguments about this. Forgive me, I don't remember who actually said it. But I heard this quote a few times, that because Trump is a businessman, he wasn't going to sign the check on the dotted line until he got what he was owed from the people he was sending the money to. What exactly was Ukraine supposed to be owing Donald Trump? Whoever decided to say that quote. What was owed? Could it be, coming up with something to investigate the Bidens on? So that then you can get your money to keep your country stable from Trump's other buddy, Putin, who's still actively attacking, not only destabilizing you, but actually having troops on the eastern side of your border? Do you think someone who is getting squeezed is going to tell us that the person that is squeezing him, who's also holding their financial and military lifeline, is that he's squeezing them? No. No, that's not happening. But yeah, while he's doing that shit up here that we're all offended by, that was happening. And this down deep, this Bill Taylor, this is a bombshell. People throughout, for politics and media, were stunned by this. This makes it more real that not only that they lied about the quid pro quo, that there was an active cover-up for it. And one of the things we learn that, especially in politics involving impeachment, sometimes the cover-up is worse than the actual offense. And showing yesterday, the Republican senators who were walking by had nothing to say about Bill Taylor's testimony. They ran away from reporters. They didn't want to comment. And which leads us to my next point, since I'm at the time frame where I'm supposed to talk about the next point. Whereas today, Republicans decided to stage a melodramatic rise up, and we're going to go and we're going to stomp over to the SCIF and interrupt the impeachment inquiry testimony. They're going to push their way through the secure setting with camera phones. They're going to protest. They're going to stand out there because of transparency or whatever bullshit reason they had. But this spectacle that they were going to force their way in there in the name of making President Trump feel better, I guess. Yeah, that happened today. Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, all the other Trump-supporting members of the Republican House decided that they're going to stage this melodramatic stunt. And it is a stunt of trying to force their way into the proceedings of the impeachment inquiry. That there is going to be someone that was testifying, and they interrupted that testimony with their trying to push their way inside. Now, one of the reasons why they claimed they were doing this was because it was all the name of transparency. They want all these things to be out in the open. They don't want there to be secret meetings and procedures and going on. It's the same thing as them. They want a vote immediately. They don't want anyone gathering evidence. They just want you to do the vote already. Do the vote already. You know what? Here's the thing on the whole vote already. Democrats, on the terms of voting for impeachment, is at 218 now. They have the vote for it. You asking for it does nothing. Because what is your next argument? What, is this because it's going to be a bi-party vote and you're going to whine about that? You would say that Democrats were whining about that. In fact, one of the interesting things is this naked hypocrisy. When these Republican congressmen complain upon the Democrats using certain rules through their committees, the Democrats fire back, well, these are your rules. You see, the Democrats didn't change the rules that the Republicans used when the Republicans were in the majority, right? So when they were in the majority, the Republicans who had to deal with Mueller's Russian investigation, they had to deal with that. They haven't had to deal with these evidentiary hearings. Well, they shut the Democrats out in some of these meetings. They made sure that certain people were not under oath when they did their very few testimonials, and they forced the Democrats not to be able to speak on anything that was said or done inside these meetings. So when the same rules when the Republicans who are in the majority are being used on the Republicans in the minority, then now they're bitching and then they're moaning as if a great travesty has happened, when none exists, with the exception of their own actions. So, what was going on today that they decided to rush out and do this display? Well, let's go from this particular article that I'm going to read. It's from yahoosnews.com. This is also another bit of this information before I get into this. Trump was aware that these people were going to do this stunt. He signed off on it. So, cui bono, who benefits? He benefits. Because Donald Trump, in his very bad, no good week that he's had, he needs to see something to cheer him up, because all the news is a majority of this person's testifying over here, this person's testifying over there. They tried blocking people from testifying, and they went ahead and testified anyway, and testified with damning evidence that is adding another nail into that impeachment. But it's still not a lynching, by the way. So, let's get into this. Trump signed off on GOP crushing impeachment testimony, Bloomberg says. President Trump knew in advance and approved of the plan for a contingent of Republican House members to disrupt the House impeachment inquiry Wednesday, according to Bloomberg News. About 24 lawmakers stormed the secure hearing room Wednesday morning, disrupting the closed-door testimony of a Pentagon official. If behind closed doors they intend to overturn the result of the American presidential election, we want to know what's going on, says Representative Matt Gaetz from Florida, the ringleader of the protest, told the reporters. Chanting, "Let us in! Let us in!" the members of the Conservative Freedom Caucus then entered a restricted area in the Sensitive Compartmented Information Facilities, SCIF as it's called, where the interviews with witnesses have been conducted. Some appear to be carrying cell phones into a room in violation of security protocols, because this is a secure location. There is no supposed to be any devices in here, because this is sensitive material, sometimes top secret stuff that is told to key members of these House committees. So you don't want anybody recording this. So this is fucked up. Alright. The chaotic scene unfolded one day after William Taylor, the senior U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, delivered damning testimony detailing how the president had linked the release of U.S. military aid to Ukraine to public assurances that President Zelensky would launch an investigation into one of Trump's political rivals, former Vice President Joe Biden. The disruption Wednesday halted testimony from Laura Cooper, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, ordered the Capitol Police to remove the intruders, after which the security sweep of the facility was required. In a statement released Wednesday afternoon, Gaetz denied he had coordinated the protest with the White House. I organized and led this press conference, including entering the committee room, Gaetz said in a tweet. I never discussed this with any White House official, including the president. While a key administration talking point has been the Democrats are conducting their impeachment inquiry in secret, Republicans sit on all three of the committees involved in the investigation and have attended each of the sessions. When Republicans controlled the House, they conducted closed doors interviews with witnesses in their 3-year investigation into the terror attack that killed 4 Americans in Benghazi. I can get more information in a 5-hour deposition than I can in 5 minutes of listening to colleagues ask questions in committee hearings. Then Representative Trey Gowdy, who led the Benghazi hearings, explained. Oh, Jesus Christ. Schiff has said that the Democrats plan to release the transcripts of the interviews they have conducted at the conclusion of this stage of the inquiry. While the specifics of the testimony are not known, the opening statements by some witnesses have been released to the press and accounts by Democrats on the committee have begun to corroborate the view that President Trump pursued a quid pro quo arrangement with Ukraine government. You had a number of Republican members who were not on the committees of the jurisdictions try to go into the SCIF area. They also brought their cell phones, which is a violation. They violated House rules by trying to crash committees which they don't sit on, Representative Ted Luce told reporters. All of this is an attack right on the investigation. Pardon-moi. SCIF, the target of Trump and his GOP supporters, told NBC News that the president's supporters in Congress mounted their protests, which resulted in a 5-hour delay because they sense that the inquiry is not treading in Trump's favor. Clearly, the White House was just devastated by yesterday's testimony, and these witnesses have been willing to defy the administration. Pardon me. To defy the administration and follow the law and come testify, Schiff said. So the president's allies are trying to stop them through other means, but they won't be successful. The invasion by the squad, consisting overwhelmingly of white men in dark suits, were called the infamous Brooks Brothers riot of November 2000, in which Republican functionaries stormed an office in Miami to stop a manual recount of presidential ballots, helping to ensure the election of George W. Bush. Trump has labeled the inquiry a coup attempt, a witch hunt, and a lynching. And many of the Republicans who participated in Wednesday's disruption have echoed him, blasting Democrats for conducting their questioning away from television cameras. Such complaints are not uncommon in Washington. In 2017, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell offered the now infamous rejoinder to Democrats who protested that Republicans had passed a sweeping tax reform bill in the middle of the night that included provisions they were not allowed to read. "You complain about process when you're losing," McConnell said. So let's paraphrase. Republican congressmen who are not on these committees, you complain about processes when you're in a minority. See, you didn't care about what was going on in the process when you were in a majority, when you were running the Benghazi hearings. You were not worrying about the processing the past few years when you snubbed out your Democratic fellow members of your committees, when you were in the driver's seat trying to keep the Russian investigation tamped down. I mean, how many people that you actually had testify but you didn't put under oath? How many times that things were behind closed doors? How many things that you put gag orders on the Democratic members so they can't go and actually say what's being said? And all this just to make your president feel better about himself. That's it. Because the transparency argument is nonsense. They're saying that Republicans don't get a chance, the Republicans don't testify, there's no Republicans in these meetings, they're not in these meetings. Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, any of you people out there outside the room, you're not members of those committees. So yeah, you don't go in. You say there's no Republicans in there? No. 45 Republican congressmen are involved in 3 of these committees. These committees concerning the impeachment inquiry. And they are able to question, they're able to ask questions, they're able to watch testimony. They are involved and they participate. They have been there. So that is bullshit to claim otherwise. This is a stunt for no other reason than to make the president feel better about himself. This is you making a show for his supporters so that they can be distracted from the actual things that are going on inside these committee meetings. The testimonies that are actually done. And for my gentle viewers, my snowflakes, both Democrat and Republican aside, who agree with me or disagree with me, let's put one more point on this before we go with this. They are questioning the process. They are questioning how things are getting done. You know what they're not questioning? They're not questioning the testimony. None of them are challenging any of these people that came up and testify. Those who said that, yeah, there was a quid pro quo. Yeah, it was contingent on Zelensky in order to get the aid for Ukraine that they had to publicly announce an investigation. Yes, they testify that this stuff happened. And none of these people are challenging it. Let that sink in. And we will be back the next time. It'll be a couple of minutes for me, but it'll be maybe a day or so for you. But there it is. The Ranter rants because his urge to rant is rising. And our chosen one is giving me plenty to rant about. So I will be back.